All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Harris County Flood Control District's virtual community engagement meeting to discuss the M124 Conveyance Improvement Project. This virtual community meeting is being offered by the Flood Control District to continue to share vital information with the community during this period when in-person public meetings have been suspended due to safety concerns from the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Sheldra Brigham. I'm with the Flood Control District's communications team. I'm joined tonight by a team of Flood Control District leadership and subject matter experts to ensure we continue to keep you up to date on these important flood mitigation projects in your community. We are also joined by staff from area elected officials' offices and community associations. We will hear first from Commissioner Jack Cagle. Okay, it sounds like we're having some problems with that audio. We'll get that up for you and play the message from Commissioner Cagle a little bit later. It's a pleasure to see so many of you in the community involved and engaged in this project, and we look forward to continuing to share updates with you and keeping all of you in the community involved in this project. This virtual public meeting will begin with a presentation to share project updates, including the construction schedule and other important information for the M124 Conveyance Improvement Project. The presentation will be followed by a virtual Q&A with Flood Control District team members. Now, attendees will be able to submit comments through the website, or you can do so by phone. Any additional comments not addressed during the Q&A session will receive a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Instructions on how to participate in this virtual open house are included on the slides. They're on the virtual meeting webpage and the Flood Control District website. I will also share a reminder of these instructions when we reach the Q&A portion of this meeting. We will now transition to Marcus Duckett. He's our Flood Control District Engineering Division Director, and he's going to share information about the district and more information about this project. Marcus?
Thank you, Sheldra, and a special thank you to each of you for joining us tonight. Before we begin the program, do we have Commissioner Cagle's presentation ready, or his welcome? All right, then I'll continue. This presentation will give you a brief overview of the plans for the M124 Conveyance Improvements. But before we get to the project, we want to share some information about the Flood Control District. The Harris County Flood Control District is a special purpose district, and we were created by Texas legislature in 1937 in response to devastating floods that hit the Houston area in 1929 and 1935. The Flood Control District was created to serve as a local partner to leverage federal funding for flood damage reduction projects. Our mission has greatly increased over 80 years with billions of dollars of infrastructure in the ground. While we are a separate entity from Harris County, the Harris County Commissioners Court serves as our governing body. The mission of the Harris County Flood Control District is to provide flood damage reduction projects that work with appropriate regard for community and natural values. One of the most difficult challenges we face is constructing effective projects that are sensitive to the community and natural values in highly urbanized areas. Harris County includes 22 main watersheds totaling approximately 1,800 square miles and more than 2,500 linear miles of channel. 2,500 miles is approximately the distance from New York to California. Each watershed has its own unique characteristics and needs. Tonight, our focus is the Willow Creek watershed. Our area is flood prone, and here are some reasons why. We're prone to extreme rainfall, including tropical storms and hurricanes. We have slow draining topography and landscape, and we have clay soils that do not easily absorb excess rainfall. The Flood Control District works with other agencies and shares jurisdiction over flooding issues in Harris County. This slide illustrates that jurisdiction. Inside the neighborhoods, as shown on the left side of this illustration, storm sewers and roadside ditches collect stormwater runoff and start the process of moving it away from streets and homes. Those storm sewers and roadside ditches are the responsibilities of the underlying municipality and Harris County Engineering in unincorporated parts of the county. The larger bayous and channels that take the collected stormwater runoff and move it through the drainage system to Galveston Bay are the responsibility of the Flood Control District. This is shown on the right side of the illustration. In the middle is a stormwater detention basin, sometimes constructed by the Flood Control District. When storm sewers are increased, this creates an increase in runoff. Since it is our policy to avoid impacts to properties downstream, stormwater detention basins help to safely take in and store excess rainfall during heavy rain events. We often partner with Harris County precincts, utility districts, and others to add recreational amenities such as trails to our basins and along our channels. On August 25th, 2018, Harris County voters approved $2.5 billion in bonds for flood risk reduction projects. This vote followed a series of meetings across Harris County in each watershed, which resulted in a list of 181 bond projects, including more than $67 million in projects, plus funding for home buyouts and storm repairs for the Willow Creek watershed. All Willow Creek watershed projects have been initiated. A total of more than $680 million in partnership funding received so far stretches the 2018 bond program even farther. The actual timing of individual projects will depend on a variety of factors, including environmental permitting, right-of-way acquisition, and utility relocation. Project lists and project schedules will be updated periodically. Partnership funding is an important aspect of the 2018 bond program. This graphic illustrates the many sources of federal, state, and local funding that the Flood Control District is working to secure for Harris County. Each agency has its own definition of eligible projects and its own requirements for local match funding. I will now move into a portion of the program that's specifically about the Willow Creek watershed and the M124 Stormwater Conveyance Improvement Project. This graphic illustrates the full extent of the project limits, shown in gray, and the approximately 5 square mile of the M124 watershed, which is outlined in the dashed red. This is a tributary to Willow Creek. This project includes stormwater conveyance improvements to the M124 channel, plus stormwater detention. It starts at State Highway 249 and ends at Willow Creek. This project is in cooperation with the Texas Department of Transportation, which is working with us to address flooding issues along FM 2920. The Texas Department of Transportation is helping fund the M124 project, which will be completed in advance of and will provide drainage for the TxDOT's future expansion of FM 2920. The future expansion will also include crossing culverts for FM 2920 to minimize inconvenience to motorists along that roadway. The goal of the project is to reduce flooding risk and improve stormwater conveyance by excavating a wider and deeper channel. Stormwater detention mitigation will be provided for the existing developed conditions to prevent impacts to Willow Creek. A stormwater detention basin is an excavated area that takes in and temporarily holds stormwater from the channel during heavy rain events. The stormwater is released slowly back to the channel as the water elevation drops. The Flood Control District does not build or maintain recreational facilities. However, The opportunity for separate recreational sponsor to step forward and fund amenities such as trails will be planned for during the design stage. We'll now discuss what's coming up in the near and farther out for this project, in the near future and farther out for this project. The near future outlook includes construction of phase 1 of this project. This is shown here on this exhibit from State Highway 249 to FM 2920. This phase 1 design is complete and construction bids are due October 19th. As of October 2020, phase 2 is in the preliminary engineering stage and nearly complete. A final report is expected to be issued November 2020. The final engineering report for phase 2 will consider public input as presented tonight and during the project comment period. The long-term outlook includes constructing phase 2 improvements, which start at State Highway 249 and end at Willow Creek. Phase 2 will deepen the improved widened channel section constructed in phase 1, continue the channel improvement south of 2920, and provide several stormwater detention basins to prevent impacts to Willow Creek. The next two graphics will illustrate the final conditions of this project when fully constructed. This includes approximately 4 miles of channel improvements, in addition to 15 stormwater detention basins. This graphic represents the proposed project north of Olin Road to State Highway 249. The blue areas represent the stormwater detention basin. And this graphic represents the proposed project south of Olin Road to Willow Creek. Again, the blue areas represent the stormwater detention basins. So to recap, the long-term outlook for phase 1 is to proceed to construction later this winter and to be completed in fall of 2021. It is anticipated that the preliminary engineering for phase 2 will conclude in fall 2020. Design will start in winter 2020, and the project is expected to bid in summer 2022. In order to illustrate the benefits of this project, the following two graphics show the north to the left so that we can represent the extent of the project on one exhibit. This graphic demonstrates the extent of flooding when the 1% 100-year rainfall is applied to the existing M124 channel. The blue area represents significant out-of-bank flooding, including overtopping of FM 2920, which is a major traffic corridor in the area. And here are the flooding extents when 1% 100-year rainfall is applied to the channel as improved by this project. Out-of-bank flooding is significantly reduced and FM 2920 is no longer overtopped. The southern portion of the project will continue to have out-of-bank flooding during heavy rain events due to the significant water backing up into the tributary from the rising Willow Creek. The backwater effect, again shown here in the blue, cannot be alleviated by this project. The next three slides include potential recreation opportunities that may be available through separate projects and funding by a partner agency, as previously mentioned. This slide represents the potential hike and bike trail opportunities north of Olin Road, with the thin black line showing a potential trail route. Here, we illustrate a typical section showing how a potential hike and bike trail Sorry, wrong slide. This slide represents the potential hike and bike trail opportunities south of Olin Road, again shown by the thin black line. Here we illustrate a typical section showing how a potential hike and bike trail could fit in between a stormwater interceptor swell to the left and a maintenance access road and channel slope down to the water on the right. And now back over to you, Sheldon.
All right, thank you, Marcus. Before we continue, let's try again to hear from Commissioner Cagle to hear his message.
Friends, this is your Harris County Commissioner of Precinct 4, Jason State. I'd like to thank the hardworking field team
It just wasn't meant to be. We do apologize for our technical difficulties with that. But Commissioner Cagle from Precinct 4 wanted to thank all of you for attending the meeting and staying up to date with this project. Now, before we move to the Q&A session tonight, I want to share a quick reminder that we'd love to hear from you on this project and other projects that we're rolling out across Harris County. Now, if you have any additional comments or questions throughout the life cycle of this project, or if you'd like to sign up to receive email updates on this and other projects in the watershed, you can visit hcfcd.org/F37. Now, community engagement is an important component of the work we do, and we invite you to continue to stay involved in these projects going forward. Now, as a reminder, there are 3 ways that you can submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. You can do so on this site in the box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website at hcfcd.org/37, or you can submit a comment on the phone. That number, 855-925-2801, utilizing meeting code 9341. If you're joining us via phone tonight, please press *3 in order to leave a message. Now, additionally, I do want to reiterate that if there is a question that's not addressed during tonight's Q&A, you will get a response from the Flood Control District after the event. Information from this meeting and a recording of the live stream will be available for you to go back and watch. That'll be on the Flood Control District's website, and it'll also be on our YouTube channel. Now, joining Marcus for our Q&A session tonight is Project Manager Isabel Funk. And now it is time to take some of your questions, and we will move to the Q&A portion. Our first question will be for Isabel. And a resident is asking that I heard there are eagles near this project. What are you doing to protect them?
Yes, we actually do have a pair of bald eagles in the area. And the first thing that we did when we discovered that they were actually nesting there, if you notice in our phase 1, we did realign the channel for us to maintain a buffer from where the exact tree is located, because they do have a huge nest out there. So that's the first thing we did. We did contact the Wildlife and Fisheries Services to see what could be done to protect them, as they're protected by the Bald Eagle Act. And we went into a permit with them where we are actually maintaining a buffer around their nest that cannot be accessed while the birds are out there. And actually they arrived a couple of weeks ago. That's what we know. So any work that is done within that buffer area has to stop at this point and can only be restarted until they leave the area, which is going to be around June of 2020. We do have an environmental team that actually keeps track every month of their status of where they are. Are they having babies soon or not? Are they building their nest and are in the area? So we watch them very closely and make sure that they're not disturbed. Signs have also been posted within the area, in the perimeter, banning anybody from being out there while the eagles are nesting.
All right, thank you, Isabel. Our next question is for Marcus. Marcus, will this project prevent all flooding in the Willow Creek watershed?
Yes, one thing that we typically don't say is that something will prevent all flooding. What we can say is that you will see a reduced risk of flooding if you're in the immediate vicinity of some of those areas where we are doing the channel improvements. So while we are reducing the elevations of water based on our engineering analyses, we never say that we can fix all flooding within the area. We're also fairly confident that with this proposed project, that the flooding that happens along FM 2920 quite frequently, sometimes in very small, what we would consider very small rain events, that this project will fix those issues as well, and which is why we're partnering with the Texas Department of Transportation for this project.
Thank you, Marcus. Our next question is from Isabel, and it's for Jim Hudson. And Jim is asking, how will this project impact flooding that we have experienced along Willow Creek east of this area? And he puts Northampton subdivision.
Okay, I think that we probably need to have a more detailed discussion because we can look at the location itself right now. But the project is supposed to be able to reduce flooding along M124, which is the existing channel, plus we're adding an additional section north of 2920 to address the flooding issues on that area. And I guess that we are not creating any additional impact to Willow Creek at this point. So what it is right now, as Marcus said, we are reducing flooding in certain areas. Some other areas will have to have a different project address the flooding within Willow Creek itself.
Thank you, Isabel. Next question is for Marcus. Marcus, what's the difference between a wet bottom basin and a dry bottom?
All right, and that's a really good question. So a wet bottom basin is one that has a permanent water surface elevation there with typically a vegetated shelf. Sometimes it contains islands in the middle of it, but it's a detention basin that will always hold water. Sometimes that, depending on whether or not we have a partner, that's used for recreational opportunities, for learning opportunities. Trails around it, fish inside, allow people to go out and fish. A dry bottom basin is a basin that pretty much doesn't have any water in it. And the difference between the two, the wet bottom basin, we typically get more volume from a wet bottom basin because a water surface elevation is flat. So this allows us to go deeper and not have to be concerned about the bottom grading of the detention basin. Because what happens in a dry bottom basin, because we need to make sure that we keep it dry, that it's maintainable, and that it doesn't become something like a mosquito desert. We have certain grades that we have to meet so that it stays dry. And by having to grade up from that lowest elevation, it causes us to lose volume, which sometimes reduce the flood damage reduction benefits.
And Marcus,
Can I add to that, Sheldon?
Oh, go ahead, Isabel.
Okay, one of the difference too is that the water quality feature is included in the wet bottom basin, which that means that, water that comes in from stormwater system into the channel actually goes through the process of being cleaner by the time it's gonna go to Willow Creek. So we're improving the quality of the water by having the wet bottoms there. I mean, they will capture some of the solids and floatables that are there in that area. And then the water that goes into Willow Creek is cleaner and I guess in a better state.
Okay, thank you, Isabel. And this next question is for you as well. Why is this project designed with multiple basins along M124 instead of one big one?
It does have to do with the area we have available and what we can provide. I mean, we kind of look at, first of all, the goal of the project is to have no impact to Willow Creek. And to actually look at the area that we want to reduce flooding, we're looking at 100-year storm events at this point, and a certain amount of volume is targeted for that. So by adding different components to it, we can actually increase the capacity of the channel and the basins for taking the water that would otherwise be in the channel or flooding the area around it.
All right, thank you, Isabel. Next question is from Marcus, and it's from Marilyn Smith. Marilyn says, I live in Boudreaux Estates. Willow Creek backs into my backyard. How is this project going to help me?
Yes, thanks, Marilyn, for that question. And unfortunately, this project will not provide any benefit to the subdivision of Boudreaux Estates that you live in. I think you all are on the south side of Willow Creek, east or west of 249. So this project is specifically changed to the M124 channel improvements. One of the exhibits I showed kind of talked about the backwater effect from Willow Creek and how this project does not help with the Willow Creek backwater effect. However, the good news is that we do have a study for the Willow Creek watershed that will make some recommendations on projects to fix some of the flooding issues along Willow Creek. And hopefully one of the recommendations that comes out of that engineering study will be recommendations to improve the bayou within your area. But again, we'll have to wait to see what those results are. But thanks again for the question.
Thank you, Marcus. Isabel, Peter Barnhart is asking, when is construction planned to begin?
Okay, right now, as we have in our schedule, we are in completing preliminary engineering design. As part of our process, we actually go to property acquisition, which is almost also complete, and then we move into design. At this point, I guess we're working with the engineer. From the results of the PER will determine, based on funding and availability of relocations that we have to do on utilities and permitting, environmental permitting, how we can move to the design process, which usually takes 8 to 12 months to complete. And then we move into bidding and then into construction. So at this point, we're looking into late fall of 2021 to issue some plans and start construction on certain portions of the project.
All right, thank you, Isabel. And as a reminder, there are 3 ways that you can submit a comment about this project during tonight's session. You can go on this site. There's a box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on our website. That's hcfcd.org/F37, or you can give us a call. That number is 855-925-2801. You're going to utilize the meeting code 9341. And if you are joining us by phone tonight, be sure to press *3 in order to leave us a message, and so we can get to your comment during this time. Our next question will be for Marcus. And Marcus, have there been any delays in this project? If so, why?
Yes, as we mentioned previously, the bald eagle's nest has been one of the delays that we've experienced with this project. We went out there, we did our survey, we do our bird surveys and our environmental investigations, and all of a sudden we go out one day and someone sends us a picture and say there's a bald eagle there with a fish in its hand. And so that, that threw everything out of whack for several months while we tried to recover the schedule to make sure that we're protecting those bald eagles out there. Also, we run into some issues with pipelines and utilities that we just were some that we didn't know who owned them, so it took a lot of time to figure that out. But I think we're back on course now to keep the project on schedule going forward. I think we should be able to get out there and finish our phase 1 portion after this season for the bald eagles, and once the younglings are fully fledged, I think we'll be able to get in and finish that area so that we can finish the phase one portion of the project. While we are still working on the phase two, I'm hoping that we've gotten past most of the issues there. Hopefully Eagles don't migrate south of 2920 and come onto the other side of the highway and slow us down again. But we'll make sure we do our due diligence to if they do.
Marcus, can you talk just more about partnership funding? You mentioned that. Can you talk to us more about that and how important it is?
Yes. So when we did the bond program in 2018, we were applying for a lot of different grants. There are several funding sources that are shown on the exhibit that we're looking at here, what we call our spaghetti model. But a lot of times those funds aren't guaranteed. So we try to find the best project to fit within one of these particular grants or that are available. And sometimes we don't get them. And so if we assume that we have a certain amount of funding that flood control would contribute and the partnership funding, we don't receive the grant, we are unsuccessful, then it causes flood control to have to try to pick up some of those funds. So it's a bit, for this partnership is very important, even not just the, federal, but, on a state level, having the Texas Department of Transportation help us with some of the funding for this project. TxDOT has been a great partner in this project, and I don't know how much farther we could have gotten without their participation, but we look forward to continuing that working relationship with them and to help the issues with FM 2920 and the flooding that's noticed in.
Thank you, Marcus. Isabel, what will the channel look like once construction is finished? That was our next question.
Okay, I guess you can imagine we do have a certain amount of right-of-way that we have acquired, and we do intend to maximize the volume out of it. Typically, we would have 30 to 50-foot maintenance berms on both sides of the channel, and it usually goes down into a trapezoidal section. So we would have probably 4 to 1 side slopes, and the depth would be around 10 feet right now. So that would envision that, and the detention basins that would feed into it would have either side weirs, and if it's an online detention basin, it'll be part of an expanded area. We do look into providing environmental enhancements through those, like putting riparian sections, so it's appealing to the public, and it could, like I said, our berms can be used for hike and bike trails. We reserve some space for that if we do have stakeholders interested in putting those through there. And it could even include, like I said, the wet areas, park-like features, even possibility of having, active recreation, soccer fields or baseball fields at the bottom of the basin that can be used when the area is dry.
Thank you, Isabel. And I do want to remind everyone, if your question doesn't get answered tonight, if we finish the meeting and then you think of something else, you can always reach out to us going forward about this project, and we'll give you a call again or contact you with a response after the public comment time frame has passed. Information about this meeting, recording of this live stream will be available on our Flood Control District website. You can also go back and watch it on our YouTube channel. We'll go to our next question. And Marcus, someone is asking, why is this a virtual meeting and not in person?
I guess that's a great question. So we're having this meeting virtually because, of course, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And one of the things that as part of the bond program was for us to make sure that we had community engagement meetings after every stage of each project. So this project is going into construction. We have the other project that's in preliminary engineering to be completed soon. And so we wanted to make sure that we reached out to the public to try to get some of this input before we finalize, because, whether the public believes it or not, we do want the input. We appreciate the input because As engineers, we tend to put our heads down and we look at paper and aerials, and sometimes we go out to the field and look at things. But it's very important to have that public input. And again, it's virtual just because the pandemic, COVID-19, we don't want to risk the safety of the residents or the Harris County Flood Control District employees. So this virtual meeting is one of the best ways for us to get information out to the public, to gather some public input before we finalize the report. But as we continue to move forward, we'll still have additional meetings. Hopefully, we'll get to a point where we can eventually meet in person as we were before. I welcome it actually at this point. But yeah, we're virtual now, just COVID-19, and we have to have these before we can move on to our next stage of our projects.
Isabel, David Kropp is asking, what geographic area is phase 1 and phase 2?
Okay, phase 1 is actually starts at SH249. Okay, the other one, I need to keep like a few slides more up. Yeah, right there. Okay, so you can see there's some existing detention basins that belong to TxDOT right now. So the plan is to drain some of that. Right now it's acting as a wet basin. It keeps water most of the time. So we're gonna drain some of that water. It's gonna flow down through the new channel section and into the existing ditch on FM 2920. That's the extent of phase 1. It is an intermediate channel, you can say, because when we do phase 2, we're gonna come back to this section and deepen the channel and the basins to match the flow line of the section of the phase 2 section that's going to be constructed just south of FM 2920. So phase 2 actually will go from Willow Creek all the way back to FM 2920 and then back to 249, where the entire channel will have the same depth, or pretty much will match the same depth. I guess what we would like to do is to actually construct that section first on phase 1 and then come back and start at Willow Creek and then move upstream back towards 249.
All right, thank you, Isabel. Marcus, next question. What other options are being considered for this area? It sounds like there may need to be another effort considered for the south portion of the project area since reductions don't extend.
Yes, and I mentioned it previously. I think when Marilyn Smith asked her question, those areas that are along Willow Creek right now are in the study, what we consider the study or feasibility phase for the project. Once we get through that feasibility stage, then they'll present it to us as the engineering division with some recommendations for projects. And just depending on funding and the recommendations that they provide, that's when we'll start working on that southern portion that you're seeing that still doesn't get any benefit from this particular project. Again, the location of those projects and exactly what those projects are, because those projects haven't come to my division yet. I don't have an answer for exactly what those projects will be, but I know there will be some recommendations and a plan for Willow Creek.
Marcus, you mentioned, oh, Isabel? Oh, thought she was saying something. You mentioned recreational opportunities earlier. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. I mean, we've been coordinating with the precinct on what they would like to see in the area. We know that they do want to have a trail section that would go down to Calvert Road to connect to other trails that they have and a park on the north side of this project. So we're looking to bringing all that trail system on the west side of the channel and connecting all the way down to Willow Creek. at this point. If there are any other partners and other groups interested, we would like to know, and we can always talk to the precinct and we can coordinate all the efforts on that. Like I said, there's been talks of possible recreation, active recreation and passive recreation on both sides of the project. It just depends right now on the interest that there is in the area from the residents also. And we do have restrictions on environmental permitting for some of those. As you know, the area does have a lot of pipelines and crossings and areas we don't want to excavate through.
Thank you, Isabel. Marcus, what are some of the challenges, and Isabel may be able to answer as well, what are some of the challenges to reducing flooding risk along Willow Creek itself?
Yeah, and while we are here to talk about M124, I guess this is a question that, since it's come up a couple of times, some of the biggest problems with, or the biggest challenges we're going to face with Willow Creek is that it's a natural channel. There are a lot of trees along the banks of it. It's not very deep right now. There's limited right of way that Harris County Flood Control District owns. So I expect that those are going to be some of the challenges while we are working on identifying projects for the area. We really as a district are being sensitive to the environment and trying to make sure that we aren't going in and just completely clearing and grubbing areas around trees. We know that the public really wants to treat and keep things in a natural state. But in terms of flood damage reduction, it makes the widening and deepening of channels much more difficult. You also run into environmental permitting issues that are probably going to be a challenge, because for every environmental impact that we cause, then we have to provide some type of mitigation for that, whether it's purchasing credits or establishing some other wetland somewhere else within the vicinity of the project. So there are a lot of challenges that we're going to face, and again, we're just going to have to wait to see what falls out from our planning study.
Thank you, Marcus. And for those of you just joining us, maybe, or just needing a reminder, there are 3 ways that you can submit a comment about this project. You can do so on this site in the box near the presentation live stream. You can submit a comment on the Flood Control District's website, hcfcd.org/F37. There's also good information on that site as well, and on that project page. Or you can submit a comment via phone. The number is 855-925-2801. You'll want to utilize meeting code 9341. And if you are joining us by phone tonight, please press *3 and leave us a message. Next question will be for Isabel. How will this project affect Willow Creek Ranch subdivision, located just west of M124? And they're wondering who should they speak to regarding a possible extension of Holderith Road from 249 to Telge.
Okay, the roads that are being proposed within this area is under the jurisdiction of Harris County Engineering. And we do work with them as they're doing extensions, because we are looking at their impacts with this road construction. So those will need to be mitigated so it does not affect any of the residents that are around them by them putting in concrete where there was previously an urban section. So the runoff from that will be mitigated within the projects that we have. So there shouldn't be any impact to any subdivision related to any expansion or construction of any of the roads.
Thank you, Isabel. Next question is for Marcus. Marcus, what do you mean when you say channel improvements mitigate for development or road improvements?
Right, and so there probably was either I misspoke or someone misunderstood. But when I said that when I'm talking about mitigate, I'm talking about mitigating for the channel improvements, specifically related to the channel improvements of M124. So we're taking something that's basically almost the size of a roadside ditch, and we're creating a major channel from it. Well, what that does is that increases the amount of conveyance. Conveyance means the movement of water or how water moves through a drainage system. So we're making that water move faster. If we make that, and that's what gives you the flood damage reduction benefit. But if we make it move too fast without providing a detention basin to pull some of that water off and hold it and store it, then it gets downstream or it gets to those properties that are south of where the channel is faster and creates an impact on those. And one of our missions is to not flood our neighbors that are downstream. So every project that the flood control district works on, especially when it's considering channel improvements, we typically have to provide some type of mitigation or detention basin within that area. Um, Isabel just mentioned mitigating for roadway improvements as part of the Harris County engineering projects. One of the ways we partnership with them is, well, now that we know that there's a roadway coming through and mitigation will be required for that in additional impervious area or that increase in impervious and conveyance based on the roadway, then we can account for that volume that for their project within the detention basin as well. So there's two types of mitigation. There's a mitigation for channel improvements and increasing conveyance, and there's a mitigation for development, which in this case, we're talking about roadways only. Harris County Flood Control District does not provide mitigation for private development. Our work is strictly related to the public and flood damage reduction.
All right, thank you, Marcus. And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but can you talk a little bit more about why our area is so prone to flooding?
Yes, and it's largely due to our topography and our soil type. The other one I mentioned was because we're just prone to hurricanes and extreme tropical rain events. I mean, we have a hurricane barreling towards us right now that it looks like it'll miss us, but it's just the region that we're in, our topography, and it's just really hard when you don't have a lot of fall. The water slows down. If it gets to, in this case, we're talking about M124. If M100, which is Willow Creek, can't go down fast enough just because it's so flat, then at some point it becomes like a car pileup. So the main car that's on the road that's slowing things down for M124 is Willow Creek at M100. So at some point you just get a backup of water and it just doesn't drain fast enough. It doesn't have anywhere to go. And so that makes things like detention basins effective in certain cases.
All right, thank you, Marcus. And because we do not give up here at the Flood Control District, we are going to try to hear again from Commissioner Jack Cagle.
Good evening, friends. This is your Harris County Jack Cagle. I'd like to thank the hardworking and highly skilled team there at the Harris County Flood Control District for their tireless efforts to protect us, the citizens of Harris County, from the threats of future flooding. I'd also like to thank you for taking time out of your evening to participate in this very important meeting. Your continued input and involvement will ensure that our community remains strong and healthy. The matters discussed this evening will focus on future improvements to the Willow Creek watershed, and that those improvements which should positively impact our neighborhood. This provides drainage for 54 square miles around the Tomball and Creekside areas. These improvements will help preserve our way of life, continue to make these communities a wonderful place to live, work, play for families. And again, your engagement tonight is important to all of us at County Precinct 4. It is a crucial part of the successful operations of Harris County Flood Control District. Thank you again for your time and your participation. This is Jack Cagle thanking you and welcoming you to tonight's event.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Cagle, for that message. Now, we did answer this earlier, but maybe someone is just joining in. We're still getting a question about the eagle's nest. Isabel, if you could kind of touch on that again and sort of give us an update for those who may have missed it, but are still pretty interested in what's going on with it.
Okay, we do have an environmental team that keeps track of the arrival and departure of the bald eagles. So we did receive information that they arrived a couple of weeks ago. So we have notified any contractor or any work going around that area to stop. We do have a permit with the Wildlife and Fisheries Services, and we make sure that there's a buffer zone where we have posted signs out there that the public or any work cannot be done in that area while the eagles are nesting. From what we know, they just arrived, like I said, and they probably will stay until June of next year when their babies fledge, depending how many young they get this year. But I mean, the first year we noticed them, they had one eaglet. Last year they had two. So we're waiting to see what happens this year. Lucky for us, they kept the same tree. They have not moved to a different area because, at the time when we first spotted them, their tree got destroyed. They moved to a different one. We had to realign a channel so we can keep clearance from them at some point. So, and like I said, nobody's allowed to be in the location while the birds are nesting. So construction and other activities do have a very small window of time to work in the area while they're there.
All right, thank you, Isabel. Marcus, this next question is for you. Looks like you have this project all planned out. What kind of comments do you seek from the public?
Yes, and I think that that's sometimes sort of a misconception that sometimes we put together engineering exhibits and drawings that things are finalized, but really the intent is to show the public what we have in mind to do. Again, I mentioned earlier that as engineers, we tend to charge down a path, put our heads down and do our engineering studies and analyses and find out later on that, something that we propose doesn't quite work without public input. Well, that's why we're here today. So any input that the public is willing to provide that could help us better define how we continue to move forward, then we'll take those. I will say that you are correct in the area north of 2920. That's moving forward because it's in design and it's finished. But being a part of this preliminary engineering stage is really the time for the public to tap us on the shoulder and let us know these things that we may be missing. So because we can change those things now without it being too devastating, as opposed to when you get into design and an eagle nest shows up and you're 90% design. So that's just kind of what we're looking for. Just any comments that the public thinks would be helpful for us to incorporate into our preliminary engineering study before it's finalized.
That's a good point, Marcus. And community engagement is such an important part of what we do. And you can see on your screen, there are multiple ways that you can reach out to us on our webpage. You can call in and use that meeting code 9341. You can visit our website, hcfcd.org/F37. And you can also go back and watch tonight's meeting on our YouTube channel. But again, we are accepting your comments through the comment period, October 21st. And leave your comments, leave your questions, and we will give you a response. Next question will be for Marcus. And Marcus, can you talk to us about how this fits into the bond program?
Yes, sure. So this project, it's one of the projects that, we're not sure how fast we would have been able to move it without the bond project. So with the bond program, So the bond program allowed us this $2.5 billion to do flood damage reduction projects. Just for to give you an idea of order of magnitude, Flood Control District worked with $60 million for capital improvement projects, such as this particular project for the Willow Creek Channel Conveyance Improvement. That $60 million per year needed to be spread across the entire Harris County. And so there were competing projects where this project, may or may not have fallen within the fiscal year this year. It may have fallen out to the next 5, 6, 10 years. So by us having the bond program, this allowed us to move this project a lot faster than what we would have been able to do had we not had the bond election.
All right, thank you, Marcus. Also, I've heard the terms thrown around about detention, retention basins that HCFCD constructs. Can you explain the difference?
Yes, so the basins for the M124 Channel Conveyance Improvement Project, these are what we call detention basins. So a detention basin takes the water in, stores it for a period of time or until the receiving stream or the receiving bayou recedes, and it lets that water out slowly. A retention pond is a pond that takes the water in and holds it in. And the only way to get that water out is using some other mechanics, something such as a pump. But detention basins work with natural, not natural, but works with the topography and gravity flow. Whereas a retention pond, it holds it there and it can hold it for as long as you let it remain full. And that's kind of something that I do hear a lot of people tend to confuse the two. I think a lot of people call them retention ponds, but a retention pond is something that holds water, and you have to use some sort of mechanical mechanism to get that water out. Whereas detention, it's all based on the gravity and the grading from the engineering drawings.
All right, thank you, Marcus. And with that, we'd like to share one final reminder that we are still continuing to accept comments and feedback on this project. The public comment period runs through October 21st, so make sure you go on our website, give us a call at the number 855-925-2801. And let us know what you think. We do want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Some great questions and comments. We do love to hear from you in the community, and we value your feedback on these projects. Thanks to Marcus and Isabel for the really great answers this evening. And we look forward to your continued engagement in this project, and we will continue to share updates as we move forward. Thanks so much. Stay safe and have a good evening.